Good afternoon. We are here for a joint hearing of the Health and Homelessness Committee with the Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs. Good afternoon, all. Thank you to my co-chair, who has helped to organize this, for all of the staff who have worked hard to assemble this meeting of the committee. Up for hearing is Senate Bill 1, Senate Draft 2, relating to healthcare, a comprehensive bill to update and modernize our statutes in response to the Dobbs decision that came down last year. Members, lots of conversation and testimony has been received on this, so we're going to jump right in. For members who are participating here in the room and via Zoom, because of the number of testifiers we have, I am imposing a 2-minute limit. I encourage you not to use all of that if you don't need to. We have all of the testimony here provided. And members have been diligently reviewing this measure and the testimony as it's been coming in. On that note, we will start. And as typically happens in this committee, we'll do decision making at the end. If there is, for those of you who are on Zoom, if there is any problem, please work with our competent staff, but we may have to pause if there are any kind of technical difficulties should they arise. My hope is that does not happen. So let's jump right in. We have testimony in support from the Department of Health. Director Kenny Fink in support. In support, Director of Department of Human Services. Attorney General in support.
Good afternoon, Chair Belatti, Chair Tarnas, Vice Chairs, members. Christopher Leong, Deputy Attorney General. The Department of the Attorney General stands in strong support of the bill. We urge the committees to pass the bill out and will be available. Thank you.
Thank you. Testimony in support, Hawaii Civil Rights Commission. We have testimony, comments from the Office of Information Practices. Comments from the Board of Nursing.
Good afternoon, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. The board will stand on its written testimony in support. Thank you.
Thank you. And I did call on the Hawaii Civil Rights Commission in support, correct? I'm moving members out of order. We have Congresswoman Jill Tokuda. Is she here? All right. We will, as soon as the Congresswoman is here, because we know she has a busy schedule and she has, for us, I think, valuable insights from the federal perspective. We will call her out of order when she comes. But on that note, Hawaii Medical Board, comments in person?
Good afternoon, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. The board will stand on its written testimony, appreciating the intent of the measure. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Addison Bulasan of the County of Kauai.
If I could interrupt, if people would make sure that the door passageway is not blocked. So Mr. Man with the camera, you're right in the line of people walking in. So if you could relocate and just make sure as people come in, we don't block them, because we want to remain safe. We're all allies here, so we want to remain safe. So if you would cooperate, that'd be great. Thank you very much. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair Tarnas. We have Hawaii County Council, Councilwoman Jen Kagiwara. Hawaii State Center for Nursing, Laura Reichart, in support. Thank you. Hawaii State Democratic Women's Caucus, Amy Monk, in support. Thank you. Okay, we have Congresswoman Jill Tokuda, and we'd like her to come front and center to provide testimony.
Thank you. Well, this is a lot fancier than when the last time I was here. Thank you, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee, members of the public here. I apologize for being late to this hearing, but I'm just so thrilled and honored that I happen to be back home in the district when you are taking up such an important measure. You know, you have my written testimony. I'm not going to repeat it. I know how this goes, but I will just share with you, as many of you know, when the Dobbs decision was leaked, I happened to be in DC. And just like so many of you, I found myself angered, sad, just completely upset and outraged that my nieces would have less rights than their grandmother. Who would have thought for all that we worked on decades ago, we would find ourselves in these positions just trying to justify our existence as women to not be treated as second-class citizens? And so for myself here to once again see Hawaii taking the lead across the country to make sure that our young women, our girls, everyone, our mothers, our sisters, our daughters can actually grow up knowing that they have a right to an abortion. They have a right to equal protection under the law to access reproductive health services. That is so critical. And so thank you for taking this step in SB 1 today, codifying it into law, protecting privacy rights that are so critically important as well. And we know as lawmakers, our work still is not done. As somebody who represents CD2, access to abortion and reproductive health care service is still not equal. So I thank you for your leadership, your courage, all that you are doing, and I know you will be joining me to make sure that across the country and across our state, access to abortion and reproductive health care service is something that is equal. It's not determined by your income or your zip code or where you live. It is something that all of us deserve as rights for women. So thank you again, and if you have any questions, I stand ready to answer them, but mahalo for your leadership on this measure.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
Thank you.
We have a representative in support from the Patsy T. Mink PAC, Jennifer Taylor.
Stand in support of our written testimony and encourage you so much to pass SB 1 that is so critical to the privacy and to the individual rights of everybody in Hawaii. It's a 50-year legacy that the state should be proud of, and I hope that we can maintain it. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Aloha Care, Paula Arcina. In support. I believe we have Stonewall Caucus of the Democratic Party of Hawaii, Michael Golu Jr. Via Zoom.
Good afternoon. Michael Goloy Jr., Chair of the Stonewall Caucus of the Democratic Party of Hawaii. We stand in strong support of this bill. SB 1 it has a special place in our heart because 10 years ago that brought marriage equality. And with this, it will bring health equality to anybody across the state. So we encourage you to pass this bill to ensure access to abortion cares for everyone. Mahalo.
Okay, we have a number of testifiers, group testifiers in support. I'm going to just quickly read through their names. There's no one here identifying who they're going to testify either in person or via Zoom. So as I go through this, if you do want to testify, please come to the podium as I call your organization. Hawaii State Coalition Against Domestic Violence, Americans for Domestic Action, Papa Ola Lokahi, Pride at Work Hawaii, We Are One, Inc., Rainbow Family 808, Hawaii Association of Professional Nurses, Healthcare Association of Hawaii, Hawaii Academy of Physician Assistants, Hawaii Public Health Institute, Kaiser Permanente, Hawaii Association of Health Plans, Hawaii State Democratic Women's Caucus, Unite Here Local 5, Ahaui Onakauka, Association of Native Hawaiian Physicians in support, Upcountry Doctor in support, Imua Alliance in support, Hawaii Women Lawyers in support. Thank you, Hawaii Women Lawyers. AAUW of Hawaii. Thank you. Via Zoom, we have ACLU of Hawaii, Taylor Brack testifying. Taylor Brack.
Good afternoon, chairs, vice chairs, and members of the committee. My name is Taylor Brack. I'm appearing on behalf of the ACLU of Hawaii. We stand in strong support of this measure, SB 1, SD 2, and we applaud the legislature's efforts to protect the health, safety, and dignity of the individuals seeking to exercise reproductive freedoms within our state. Thank you for the opportunity to testify this afternoon.
Thank you, Ms. Brack. We have testimony in support, Hawaii Medical Association. Testimony in support via Zoom, ACOG Hawaii section, Dr. Rennie Soon.
Aloha, Chair Belatti, Chair Tarnas, Vice Chairs, and committee members. My name is Rennie Soon, and I am an OBGYN representing the Hawaii section of the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. Mahalo piha. for hearing this important measure. You have our written testimony and strong support of this measure. I just want to draw your attention to a couple of things. No matter anyone's personal beliefs about abortion, it is medical and public health fact that access to abortion is critical to reducing pregnancy-related morbidity and mortality. We are already starting to see in the states that have banned or restricted abortion a rise in pregnancy-related injury and death. This is not my opinion. This is fact, because abortion is healthcare. And here in Hawaii, we recognize the importance of protecting access to abortion even before Roe v. Wade. We are leaders in this. As Representative Tokuda was saying, this is our legacy. We recognized long ago that those making decisions to have abortions are our neighbors, our ohana, members of our community. And we malama each other with compassion and aloha, not judgment and disdain. You know, the continent is going nuts, but you all can at least keep us here in Hawaii protected from that madness and the zealous overreach from other states, which I guarantee you is coming. So I speak on behalf of Hawaii ACOG, the profession entrusted with the care of women and families, but also personally as a board certified OBGYN, as one of a handful of abortion providers in this state, as a mother, as a lifelong kama'aina, in strong support of this bill. Mahalo for this opportunity to testify, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Soon. We have testimony and support from the Democratic Party of Hawaii Legislative Committee, William Bagasol. Testimony and support in person, HMSA, Don Kurisu. Thank you. Hawaii Maternal and Infant Health Collaborative in support. Planned Parenthood Alliance Advocates in person in support.
Good afternoon, chairs, vice chairs, and committee members. My name is Jen Wilbur, and I'm State Director for Planned Parenthood Alliance Advocates. You have our written testimony in strong support of SB 1, SD 2, a bill that takes critical steps towards protecting abortion providers and patients. We have seen nationwide attacks on abortion access. A group of anti-abortion activists are threatening access to medication abortion across this country by suing the FDA in federal court over the FDA's approval of mifepristone, a medication that has been used for decades. It is clear that anti-abortion activists and politicians are not stopping at banning an abortion at a state level. They are coming after Hawaii patients and providers too. All people in our state need to be confident that Hawaii laws protect their right to access abortion services. Our providers should not be afraid of being jailed, to lose their license, to be barred from ever practicing medicine again simply for providing basic legal health care. Our providers need to be confident that they can continue to focus on patient health and that Hawaii will always be a safe place to do its best for the person that they are serving. Thank you for this opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Ms. Wilbur. We have testimony in opposition from the Hawaii Federation of Republican Women in person, Ms. Jamie Detweiler. Do you want to come to the podium?
Aloha, chairs. Good afternoon, and vice chairs. Thank you for this opportunity to testify today. The Federation, Hawaii Federation, as well as the National Federation, one of our pillars is to stand and affirm, support everyone on all stages of life, from conception to the end of life. So that's one of our major pillars in the Federation. And with that being said, I also want to establish that I respectfully acknowledge Hawaii's law for women. I'm born and raised here, Hawaii born and raised. Very proud of that. And I also respect our Constitution and everybody's right and freedoms to speech. So I do have compassion and aloha for everybody here today. So, you know, this bill was 45 pages long. There's a lot of information in there, and it was overwhelming to begin with. But I want to focus on one thing, and it's advocacy for minors. So this bill advocates for our minors to consent to abortion. And as a mom and a grandmother now, I have very much concerns about that. I have a lot of concerns about that. I think it's a personal decision between parents and their children. I think children are not fully developed emotionally to make those decisions on their own. And I just want to be a voice for the parents and grandparents out there who are raising their children. And again, I do respect everybody's voice on this, on both sides of the issue. My dad always told me, aloha ke kahi ike kahi, which means to love one another. And I always told my children, they're all married now, and I have 10 grandchildren. I told my children that even when they made decisions that my husband and I didn't support, that we're going to love you through that. And I think we need to be there, no matter what place a young woman or a teenage woman and their partners are in, we need to love them through that decision. So again, the Federation advocates for life, and we stand on that. Thank you for this opportunity to testify. Have a great day.
Thank you, Ms. Detweiler.
If I may ask everyone, let's just listen to everyone rather than start cheering or clapping or whatever. I appreciate that you may agree with the testifier, but let's just listen to the testifier and give them the respect to listen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have testimony in opposition, Hawaii Family Forum, Ms. Eva Andrade in person.
Aloha, Chair Bellotti and Chair Tarnas and members of the committee. Thank you so much for the opportunity. You have our testimony in opposition. I just want to say, I may not look it, but I've been here in Hawaii my whole life, and I remember 1978. I remember when Linda Lingle expanded abortion in 2006. I remember the advanced practice registered nurses being added. The question we would have is just simply this, right? We know that there is an educational difference between physicians and advanced practice registered nurses and physician assistants. And I want to say for the record too, we are very grateful for the work of the OBGYNs. So I don't want anybody to think that we're attacking them on what they do, because they do a lot of good work. And I don't want my OBGYN watching this to ever be upset by the fact that I'm doing this. But I do stand in strong opposition. And I'm also grateful for those that support the bill, that have been able to pull me aside and talk to me about my opposition without anger and attacking. And I think that here in Hawaii, we're known for our aloha. And that's something that I'm very grateful for. So thank you so much for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Ms. Andrade. We have testimony and support from Doris Siegel Matsunaga in person, individual.
Can you hear me if I keep the mask on?
Yes.
Okay. No?
Yes,
Yes,
we do
sorry.
hear you.
Thanks.
Please proceed.
Representatives and members of the committee, I'm speaking in strong support of SB 1 as a grandmother who believes in safe and legal abortion. After 40 years of working at 3 Oahu Community Health Centers as a public health educator and administrator, I retired to Waimea on the Big Island to live near grandchildren and extended family. From this career, I know that health providers in Hawaii have long labored quietly, mostly under the radar, to help women access abortion services, and that policymakers such as yourselves prefer to quietly support medical privacy and reproductive freedom versus engaging in public advocacy on this issue. While Hawaii, as you know, was a trailblazer and the first state to legalize abortion, we also have a strong community tradition of valuing multicultural and religious diversity and building a tolerant, pluralistic democracy without inflaming community divisions. However, given events at the national level, this approach is no longer possible in the legal sense. SB 1 is essential to strengthen our laws and protect residents, families, and providers. As policymakers, it's time once again to show the courage of Hawaii's early heroines and heroes and take a stand for reproductive freedom and medical privacy and pass this bill. However, I also wish to challenge the legislature to go further, if not this year, then next. While this bill takes important steps to protect and expand abortion access, as those of you from neighbor islands know, more remains to be done. Access to abortion services has always been a challenge for low-income women, even on Oahu. And as with all medical care, abortion services are even less available to those living on neighbor islands and in rural areas.
Ms. Matsunaga, can you wrap it
Yes.
up? Your 2 minutes.
Certainly, thank you. That's it. I stand in strong support of the measure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yvonne Lau, testifying in support in person.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chairs, and members of the committee. I stand on my written testimony in strong support of this bill, and thank you for your support.
Thank you. Lorraine Robinson, in support in person.
Yes, I also stand on my written testimony. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Gray Norlarts, in support in person. My apologies for mispronouncing.
That's all right. It's pronounced Nawalarts. Aloha mai kako. Hello, Chairman, chairs, vice chairs, and committee members. I use they, them pronouns, and I came here to tell my story. I grew up with a bright pink Planned Parenthood magnet on the fridge. I didn't know what Planned Parenthood was, and all I knew what the things were people at my elementary school were saying. They weren't saying positive things about the organization, and often said that people who go to Planned Parenthood are horrible people, and they don't deserve to be here. Strong for 4th graders in elementary school, I know. One night, my mom and I sat down at the table, and I asked her about the magnet, since this was a hot topic at school. She told me all about Planned Parenthood and the things that they do to help us, like offering STI testing, birth control, and abortion. She assured me that when I got older, I would be very appreciative of Planned Parenthood. Years later, somebody from Planned Parenthood came to my school and taught my 9th grade class about gender and sexuality. As a trans kid who was outed by a teacher and sat in the far back corner of the classroom, I felt seen for the very first time. I felt that as a transgender person, I was trans enough that I could keep my uterus and my breast, and there were other people like me. After the lesson, I was presented with an opportunity, volunteer pre-education work with Planned Parenthood. Through this work, I was able to learn about my body and things that my school does not teach. I never got to watch the puberty video that we were supposed to watch in 5th grade, and I knew nothing about my body. I learned so much about abortion and LGBTQ+ health through my work with Planned Parenthood, and I hadn't realized how important these issues really are. One of the first meetings I attended as a volunteer was right after Roe was overturned, and I had just finished reading Brave New World. I used to think that 1984 got more right, but our connections to Brave New World are getting stronger and stronger. It's not a good thing. But I'm very happy that Hawaii has kept our law allowing abortion, but the statute needs to be updated with stronger framework that protects abortion providers and patients. As the local and national anti-abortion movement is trying to get rid of state laws allowing abortion, Hawaii must remain a safe space for accessible health care for all bodies, gender-expansive bodies, gender non-conforming bodies, cisgender bodies, all of them. SB1 SB2 currently ensures that inclusive language is used. I'm grateful for this because I have a uterus and I'm not a woman. This law applies to my body and acknowledges it, but does not acknowledge my identity. There are many others that will feel the same way here. Hawaii has a long history of LGBTQ+ people and mahu, and there are many transgender people who, like me, are not acknowledged by the language in our laws. Language about certain issues often exclude transgender people. Language about periods that only talk about women exclude transgender people who menstruate is another example. I menstruate and I am not a woman. Law should acknowledge the whole person and who the body belongs to. I may not love my body, but I'm learning to respect it, and law should respect our bodies too. I'm here to ask you to give significant support to SB1, SD2, a bill that strengthens our abortion law by using inclusive language and protecting abortion seekers and providers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Please refrain from any clapping or applause at the time. Olivia Cornejo in person in support.
Aloha, chairs, vice chairs, and members of the committee. My name is Olivia Cornejo, and I'm here today as a Honolulu resident to share my strong support for SB1. With the overturn of Roe v. Wade this past year, I have felt very unsettled and fearful, knowing that my bodily autonomy and right to reproductive choices is no longer protected at a national level. While abortion remains legal in Hawaii, something I'm very grateful for, given that these federal protections are no longer in place, I think now more than ever it's important to strengthen our laws and ensure that all people in Hawaii can feel safe knowing that their right to choose whether to have an abortion or not is protected. As many states move to criminalize reproductive health care, I also think that it is vital that our patients as well as providers are protected from prosecution across state lines. Hawaii has a proud history of being one of the first states to decriminalize abortion, and I think we should continue to set the standard for progressive legislation by passing SB1 and safeguarding abortion access for all. Thank you for this opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Olivia. Testimony in support from Tracy Chen, individual, in person. And I just want to remind us the speaker is making her way to the podium. Go ahead. We do have your written testimony, so no need to read all of it if you want to just highlight the important parts as well as speak whether you're in support or opposition. But thank you. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you so much, honored committee members. I stand in strong support of my written testimony for SB1, SD2. I just want to add and emphasize that I'm here today as a complex family planning fellow of the University of Hawaii's Department of OBGYN. This means I've completed a 4-year OBGYN residency, and I'm currently undergoing a 2-year fellowship to become a specialist in complex contraception and abortion care. And specifically, I came to Hawaii because when I was a 2nd-year OBGYN resident in training, I went to a national academic conference for abortion providers and witnessed firsthand the passion and dedication of the state's providers on that national stage. They truly personified Hawaii's incredible legacy of abortion access, and I'm so proud to be able to stand here with them today. If Hawaii continues to be a leader for reproductive rights in this country, I can assure you that top trainees across the country will be fighting to come here just as I did, because this generation understands that providing the full spectrum of healthcare includes providing abortion. So I strongly urge you to pass SB1. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Danny Mathiasen, in support in person.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Dr. Danny Mathiasen, and I'm an OB-GYN in training here in Oahu. Prior to moving here, I lived in Texas, where I was born and raised. While in medical school, my husband and I were blessed with a miracle pregnancy. Everything went well. I never missed an appointment. I took all of my vitamins. But at our anatomy scan, we learned that my daughter had multiple lethal fetal anomalies and would not survive the pregnancy. Senate Bill 8 had just passed in Texas, and we were unable to receive counseling on options, more or less the actual care that we needed. We turned to friends for advice and had to call multiple clinics before we found the closest one that was over 600 miles away. What we did was completely legal in the state that we went to, but we still lived in fear that our decision would come back to penalize us back in our home state. Many states like Texas are trying to pass laws to punish patients that travel out of the state to seek abortion care. Having to leave my home and my family was traumatizing enough, but worrying that state laws could follow me added to the trauma and stress. I support SB1 so that other pregnant people like myself don't have to suffer from the added stress of sharing personal medical decisions across state lines. Such actions violate provider and patient confidentiality and creates further barriers to an already difficult journey to navigate. These bills are vital to protect both patients and providers from undue disciplining by performing legal reproductive care. By protecting our providers, we protect patients like myself and numerous others. As a doctor, a patient, a daughter, sister, and a mother, I urge you to pass this bill, and you have my full support. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. We have testimony in support from Divya Dethier in person.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Divya Dethier. I'm a board-certified OBGYN, and I'm an abortion provider. And I'm here to testify in strong support of SB1, SD2. You have my written testimony, but I would like to highlight a few things. Abortion care is, simply put, necessary and integral part of reproductive health care. I wish you could join me in just a single day in our clinic. Every single patient's story is compelling. And I am proud to offer evidence-based, necessary care to my patients. But after Dobbs, my job and livelihood are constantly overshadowed by a fear of losing the ability to care for patients, for providing them with the care they need and deserve. With no federal protections left, restrictive laws in other states still threaten me and my colleagues across the ocean here in Hawaii. I thank you deeply for your leadership. Hawaii has a proud legacy as a leader in reproductive rights in this country, and let us continue this legacy to support our people, support abortion providers, and support access to this necessary health care. Mahalo.
Thank you. We're going to take all the testimony in person first. So next up is Grace Alvaro Kaligtan, and then I have testimony in person. I'm going to name the people so we can start getting ready for them. Rita Kama Kimura in person, opposition, and James in person, opposition. So if you two can be ready to follow up, and then we'll go on. Go ahead, Ms. Kaligtan.
Yes.
Aloha, Chair Bellotti and Chair Tarnas, and the committees on health and homelessness and committees on the Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs. My name is Grace Alvaro Caligton, and I'm a community member who lives in House District 27 and Senate District 14. I am a dedicated community health educator who cares about protecting the dignity, the safety, and the futures of teens and young adults. This bill, as our Hawaii Attorney General has recognized in previous testimony, is consistent with Hawaii's long-standing protection for sexual and reproductive rights. Furthermore, the Director of the Department of Human Services has also recognized that this bill supports an individual's right to make health care decisions, including all reproductive health care, in a supportive and stress-free environment. In my professional capacity, I get to hear youth, parents, and family concerns about reproductive and sexual health. In our conversations, I do my best to answer questions candidly and honestly, pointing to vetted resources and the range of diverse values that can inform the topic at hand. I am troubled, however, by the cruel and punishing weight of persistent abortion stigma and the unfair double standards that often disproportionately are placed on the shoulders of girls and young women and trans and gender nonconforming bodies. Seeking medically accurate answers and available legal options for sexual and reproductive health is enshrined freedom and social and political human right required to live in a free, democratic society. It is not a crime, and yet the national landscape in the US continent leads us to fear that it could be. That is why SB 1 here is critical in holding the line to safeguard abortion access and reproductive justice here in Hawaii.
Ms. Caligton, can you wrap up your testimony, please?
Absolutely. This is my final and last question to all of us here, is how can we teach young people about consent, personal responsibility, kuleana, and bodily autonomy if they cannot rely on our Hawaii statutes to affirm that their bodies are their own? Youth and families in Hawaii deserve to be assured that support, compassion, and privacy to determine their own futures will continue to be upheld as the policy and practice of Hawaii. Please support SB 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we next have James, followed by Rita, and Rita Kama Kimura, then it's going to be followed by Lisa Shorba and Cynthia Bartlett. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I'm against SB 1, SD 2. I mean, what's the rush? What's the urgency in the need for abortion access? What happened to saying keeping abortion safe and rare? Sounds like it went out the window. Keep abortion safe. Why is the bill allowing less experienced people to perform abortion? That's careless. That's desperation. Are we going to make secretaries do abortion now? We keep lowering the standards. Keep abortion rare. This bill, SB 1, SD 2, screams abortion on demand. More abortions equal more money. That's what they care about. We're not about money. We do it for the love of the life and of the life of the baby. And we also care for the mothers. We have resources to provide for the mothers and a child. Education and hope is the key. When we're at Planned Parenthood, there are people choosing life. There are miracles happening. There are miracles happening. That's hope. There's this one couple that went in. They was going to get an abortion. 10 minutes later, they came out. Then a lady said, "We're going to keep the child." Everybody on the sidewalk exploded. Everybody was happy. Everybody cheering. Everybody's high-fiving. You know, we was happy for them. My friend even asked them, "You guys want a baby shower?" We'll provide for them. So this is what I want to see. I want to see happiness. I want to see people smiling, not getting an abortion, celebrating life, not crying, sobbing after abortion. That's what I see. I see it all too much. Always in the back seat, when they're coming out, in the back seat, they're slouching, crying, hiding. You know, but we have to have resources that can help them, as a matter of fact. But the pro-abortionists, they call it women's rights.
Sir, can you
women's
wrap up your
power.
comments?
Power to the women. I don't see power. I see a girl in pain. I see a girl hurting. I see her demoralized. Women deserve better. We don't need SB 1, SD 2 because it causes more trauma. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Rita Kama Kimura in opposition.
Good morning, or good afternoon, Chair Bellotti and Tarnas and committee members. My name is Rita Kama Kimura, and I stand in strong opposition to this bill. Although I do want to, I do stand on my testimony, but I do want to point out just a few things. The change to the medical care and services so that a minor may consent to receive without any other person's consent surgery, or treatment to induce abortion. We need to remember these minors belong to and are the responsibility of their parents. They do not belong to the government, and this should be taken out of the bill. I have asked, when seeking abortion, are these women given any type of counsel to possible options? In the event there's a concern with the development or feasibility of the fetus or embryo, have they been advised to consult a neonatal intensive care unit for help, guidance, or for possible options? I believe Kapiolani has a whole section dedicated to this. In other cases, what about the option of donating the embryo to an in vitro fertilization clinic? Imagine being able to help a man and woman who want but are unable to have a child, and an unwanted child being brought together to form a loving, nurturing home. The third, of course, is adoption. Lastly, the other complex issue with other states requiring laws and abortions which may conflict with Hawaii. This has gotten so expansive, it should be removed from this bill, given its own bill, and addressed that way because of the complexity and in-depth issue.
Ms.
It does not
Kamakura,
belong here.
Can you wrap it up? Your 2 minutes are up.
That was it. I thank you for your time, and again, I ask you to vote in opposition.
Thank you. We have Lisa Shorba up next, followed by Cynthia Bartlett, and then we're going to have Brittany, who's testifying in opposition. Go ahead, Ms. Shorba.
Aloha mai kako. My name is Lisa Shorba, and I just want to thank you for this opportunity to testify. I stand in strong opposition to this measure, SB1, SD2. I'm a counselor, and I also run a ministry for post-abortion healing for women and men who are suffering after abortion. I know firsthand the effects of abortion, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. It's very traumatizing an experience to go through one. I actually have a team member who's with me. Her name is Claudia, and I wanted to invite her just to share, if it's okay with you, just a quick, a little, just as a testimony of herself and her own personal experience with abortion. And as well, I'd like to also make note that when a woman goes to an abortion, the doctor has to account for all the pieces of the baby. That's otherwise there could be a incomplete abortion, and the woman can die from that. And so that's another concern that could be happening, and women could be going home and not treated right away and dying from something like that, as well as what do they call it? Anyway, I'm just here to say Hawaii deserves better. Women deserve better than abortion, and we have a lot of support services here for women and children.
Thank you,
I'd like
Ms.
to
Shorbo.
give
So we'll
Claudia
take
a chance.
Claudia, and if, like Claudia, you can provide your name to the committee clerks at the end of this. You're here testifying in person, so we'll take your testimony. 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, aloha. I'm Claudia Pokipala. I'm also a registered nurse. I've been nursing in the state of Hawaii for over 20 years. Mahalo ke akua. And I just wanted to share a little bit of my background. I was a teenager. I did go to Planned Parenthood. I did it without my parents knowing. I was too afraid, and I'm speaking to the young people in the room today.
Ma'am, if you could speak to us,
absolutely.
because the camera is looking at
Okay,
you.
yes,
Everyone
sir.
wants to watch you. So go ahead,
No
please.
problem. I was that teenager. I went to Planned Parenthood without my parents knowing. I came from a broken family. I came from dysfunctional family, and I was too afraid to go to my parents for help. I ended up going to Planned Parenthood at 15, and then again at 16. I didn't know what else to do. I thought I had all the answers. Looking back, I didn't know what I was doing. I was scared, I was lost, and I wish I would have had that relationship with my parents. I know, looking back now, that if I had done that, I would have gotten great support, and I would have had a 27-year-old child today and a 22-year-old child today. Anyhow, abortion does hurt. It affected me psychologically, emotionally. I went on to use drugs for about 15 years. I went on, and we know, studies show that women, once they get an abortion, they go on to have repeat abortions. And, you know, I heard someone say about the numbers, a doctor, you know, how they're seeing an increase in pregnancy injury related. I don't know how they would even correlate that to abortion, because actually we have seen increased numbers in miscarriages.
Claudia,
and
can you wrap it up? Your 2 minutes
I
are up.
can.
Just-
All I want to say is more attention needs to go into the family unit. More education needs to go into these women so that they have alternate options, not go straight to abortion, because abortion does hurt women. And as a teenager, we're just too young and dumb to know what we need.
Thank you, Ms. Claudia. Next up, Cynthia Bartlett, opposition in person. It's going to be followed by Brittany, opposition in person, followed by Olivia Manayan, MD, in support in person. In person, in opposition, Josiah Araki, and then Joe Ritter in support in person. So those are our final testifiers in person. Go ahead, Ms. Bartlett.
Mahalo. I just wanted to remind everyone that Roe versus Wade was the federal government giving the rights back to the state. And there seems to be a lot of histrionics and misinformation here. Hawaii does allow abortion, nothing changed. You might be adding more to it, but it never was in danger of losing abortion. My concern is the minor and the Privacy Act. I'm a parental rights advocate, and I really worry. In January 21, we already made it legal for a 14-year-old to hide their transgender medicine from parents. And I'm really worried about lowering the age of consent. I've spoken to a few legislators here in this building that want to lower the age of consent for all medical procedures, not just abortion. And I think that we need to remember we're about family and about ohana. And if we hide things from parents, it does not go well, and it is not a direction for health, mental health or physical health. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, in person, Olivia Manayan, support. Following the in-person, we're going to go to the Zoom individuals. So Zoom members, if you can start to get ready to be providing your testimony, we'll come to you next. Dr. Manayan.
Good afternoon, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. Thank you for hearing my testimony today. My name is Dr. Olivia Manayan, and I'm an OBGYN resident physician based in Honolulu. I train at Kapiolani Medical Center and the Queens Medical Center, and have provided abortion care at both of these hospitals. I am here today in strong support of SB1 SD2. Every person with a uterus has the right to decide if and when she bears children. To deny her this right is to mark her as a second-class citizen. By forcing her to be a slave to her fertility, you deny her the ability to fully exercise her inalienable rights to life and to liberty. The Dobbs decision and subsequent legislation being passed in some states to restrict abortion does just that. In medicine, we strive to provide care that balances the principles of beneficence, non-maleficence, and autonomy. As a physician, it is my duty to help my patient to get the care that is best for her life and circumstances. Abortion is essential health care that is provided with these principles in mind. When writing the statement, I am reminded of a patient who presented to me in her second trimester of pregnancy. She explained to me that her partner had left her, and she knew that in order to be able to provide for her 2 existing children, she would have to end this pregnancy. The decision to end pregnancy, whether difficult or easy,
Dr. Manayan, can you wrap up your comment?
is always made with considerable thought. No person gets pregnant to have an abortion. SB1 will help to ensure that the people of Hawaii, as well as those who come to Hawaii to seek abortion care, will not face prosecution for making the best decision for themselves and their families. I reaffirm my support. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Doctor. Testimony from Josiah Araki in opposition in person. And then Joe Ritter is going to be up, and then we're going to turn to Zoom following that, first with Ellie Godby Carson and Sarah Combs. Go ahead, Mr. Araki.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. So you shall not pollute the land where you are, for blood defiles the land, and no atonement can be made for the land, for the blood that is shed on it, except by the blood of him who shed it. Today, I speak in opposition of SB 1 SD2, and denounce it as not only a further step down a path stained red with the blood of the most innocent and vulnerable in our society, but as a gross violation of the U.S. Constitution. As has been understood since the days of the Marshall Court, the U.S. Congress has sole powers to regulate interstate commerce. This bill, seeking to turn Hawaii into a sanctuary state for abortion, violates this by preventing other states from extraditing their own citizens for purchase of goods and/or services deemed illegal in that state. And if you look at the paper, I have a link to the section relevant. Further, by providing a means for citizens of other states to obtain abortions, the state of Hawaii is depriving those states of future citizens whom themselves would otherwise be making a sizable contribution to interstate commerce. Further issues with this bill include Section 7's amendment to HRS, specifically to subsection C, which removes discipline by other states or federal organizations on account of an unlawful abortion in another state, despite, regardless of one's views on abortion, it still being an illegal procedure in those states at the time.
Mr. Rocky, can you wrap it up? Your 2 minutes are up.
This bill, which is supposedly about women's I'm done. Sorry.
Thank you, and we understand your testimony's opposition. We do have your testimony submitted. Next up, in person, Joe Ritter in support.
Honorable Chairs Bellotti and Tarnas and House Committee members, I'm Dr. Joe Ritter. I'm testifying in support of SB1 for reproductive rights, for human rights, and for the right to choose. I almost didn't testify today because as I have no uterus, I have no right to say what reproductive medical choices any other person makes. As a scientist, I feel compelled to speak out about this issue. Although I'm a physicist, my qualifications include several refereed scientific publications in the fields of developmental biology, specifically embryo development, even being an invited keynote speaker for the Mid-Atlantic Reproductive Teratology Society. My main thesis here is simple. A fertilized egg is not a human. Many who refuse to acknowledge a woman's fundamental right of choice often claim fallaciously that once an egg is fertilized, it is human. This is wrong. Let me explain. Cellular differentiation is a process in which general purpose cells express DNA codes in such a way that future generations turn cells into more specific functioning cells. Common cells like stem cells or single fertilized egg are not highly differentiated for many generations, are simply a non-specific blob of cells with no neural development, no consciousness, and no external human traits.
Mr. Ritter, can you wrap up your comments and then your
Yes.
2 minutes are up.
My second point is I support SB1 on legal grounds. The recent Dobbs versus Jackson decision is highly debated with good reason. The Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution provides a right to privacy. The Constitution therefore protects a woman's liberty to choose to have an abortion without excessive government restriction. Also, separation of church and state is a fundamental tenet of our political system.
Mr. Ritter, we have your testimony. I need to ask you to stop now.
Okay.
But we do have your written testimony, so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We have testimony next from the Zoom participants, Ellie Godby Carson, followed by Sarah Combs, and then Bernadette Pata and Brent Colbis. Are there any other testifiers in Zoom other than those four? We'll take up Ms. Godby Carson first as we're looking to our staff. Go ahead, Ms. Carson.
Nope, she's not there.
She's not there. Okay, Sarah Combs in Zoom.
Hello, Chairs Bellotti and Tarnas, Vice Chairs and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Sarah Combs. I'm currently a second-year Master's of Social Work student and a fourth-year Community Psychology PhD student at the University of Hawaii Manoa, and I'm testifying today with strong support to SB1, SD2. My main sort of background for testifying today comes from my work as a sexual health educator in New York City, where I worked providing options counseling along with a bunch of other reproductive health education to women at a federally qualified health center in New York City. We had all ages, minors included, of women who would come in and say, I could never consider an abortion, get a positive pregnancy test, and then think about how that would affect their life. And then some would choose to continue a pregnancy, some would choose to have an abortion, but that comprehensive counseling was really important. And so I just want to reaffirm my right, or my support of the right to choose, and the right to choose also, it exemplifies the importance of protecting providers as well, which I appreciate in this bill, and also the right for minors as well to choose. So you have my written testimony. I stand in support of that, and I thank you for the opportunity to testify. And again, just want to reiterate my strong support for this bill. Thank you for the opportunity.
Next Zoom testifier up is going to be Bernadette Pata. Are there any other testifiers here in the room who would like to testify who were not registered? What I'd like you to do is if you could identify yourself and provide your name to the committee clerks, and we're going to have you line up and testify. Before we go to those people, after we do the Zoom testifiers, I'm going to open it up to some questions from members who might have questions for some of our subject matter experts who are here. And then we will take up the rest of the testifiers who are here in the room. Up next, Ms. Pata, are you there? Bernadette Pata?
Yes.
Go ahead, Ms. Pata.
Can you guys hear? Oh, okay. Aloha, members of the committee. My name is Bernadette Pata. I am a master's student in my final year at UH Manoa and a member of the NSAW. And I am here today in strong support of SB 1, SB 2. As women, I believe we all should have access to reproductive health rights and healthcare. And I believe we should continue to be leaders in protecting healthcare rights for people who choose to have abortions. And yeah, like I said before, I am in full support of this bill. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. Mahalo.
Thank you. Mr. Kolbus in Zoom. If he's there, not
No,
there,
no.
okay. One more call for Ms. Godby Carson via Zoom.
No.
Okay, members, we're going to get to the testifiers who are still here, but I did want to open up the floor to any members who might have questions from any of the testifiers. Are there any questions from members at this point? Representative Ganadin.
Is the Office of the Attorney General here?
Attorney General, representative from the Attorney General's office, if you can come to the podium, please.
Yes.
Good afternoon. Myself and many other people are avidly watching the current lawsuit happening in Texas, which seeks to ban, I don't want to offend the OBGYNs in the audience, mifepristone, with the FDA and the providing of services and giving, I guess, these abortion pills to individuals. I didn't realize prior to this lawsuit that that makes up more than half of current services given in the field. Does SB 1 adequately protect service providers here in Hawaii giving these kinds of services if this Texas lawsuit proceeds?
Well, if the Texas law, or if the suit proceeds, I mean, I think there's language in SB 1 that what providers do in this state, is not, a violation, or can't be sanctioned if what they are doing or performing is legal in this state. I think that's the short answer.
Okay, so Section 2, in your mind, adequately protects the service providers who might be providing services for out-of-state residents if the services they're providing are legal here in Hawaii.
Well, I think Rep. Ganadin, not only Section 2, but then there are all the sections following which pertain to the specific types of service providers. There's language in each of those chapters that would protect the service providers.
So there's no need for prospective amendments in light of this ongoing litigation?
I don't think so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Representative. Any other questions?
Representative Garcia.
Thank you, Chair. For the AG's office as well.
You might want to just stay there.
Thank you. Question, currently the age in Hawaii for consent is 16 years old. The bill says that a person can receive an abortion at age 14 with no parental consent. Intercourse below 16 would be considered statutory rape. So question, if this bill passes, would you be aiding in breaking the law of consent?
I think that's something that may need to be considered further
It
because
should
there
be,
may
yeah.
be there may be differences between the age floor in one statute and the age floor in another statute. So I think that would be something to think about.
So not only can they have abortion access, but with no parental consent. And that's a problem. So anyway, thank you for your answer.
Thank
you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? Representative Souza.
Thank you. I just had a question regarding section 2B2, where it says basically that a woman would have the right to terminate a pregnancy if the termination is necessary to protect the life or health of the pregnant person. Can you elaborate as to if, if this is not eventually law and codified, what would be the ramifications for women who are in a situation where they are experiencing, health issues at the time of birth or whatever, and they are trying to basically save their own lives? Would they not have the right to do so unless this is law? Like, what does that look like?
Well, I think that section 2B2, or actually all of 2B that you're referring to, Rep. Souza, there are, I guess, wording and terminology changes that are being made to that section or subsection in the bill. And I think even without those changes, there is still the right to obtain an abortion, the termination of pregnancy to protect the life or health of the mother person.
Okay, so just to clarify, are you saying that a woman would still have that right absent this legislation?
Yes. I mean, there is the existing section 453-16. So,
okay.
As it is currently in effect, it does have effect, yes.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the members? First round of questions. Okay, second questions, Representative Garcia.
Thank you, Chair. For Planned Parenthood, please. Hi, thank you for coming. Question, in this last year, 2022 to now, how many women below 16, from 14 and up, from 14 to 16, have access services through Planned Parenthood?
I don't have that information on
Okay,
hand.
and then question, when you folks do help someone that's in that age group, do you folks currently ask for consent from parents?
No, consent is not.
So if a girl comes in who's 14, asks for an abortion, there's no contact to the parents whatsoever.
My understanding, I can get back to you with exactly what the entire procedure is, but my understanding that is legal for a minor to obtain abortion services without consent.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from members? I have questions. Attorney General, please. This committees are primarily concerned about ensuring that the protections that we had under Roe v. Wade are preserved. And so on this issue of the minor consent, given the state of the case law before Dobbs was passed, and under Roe v. Wade, was informed consent required for minors? And I will, let me ask Ms. Warrington for the answer to that question, who's standing right next to you.
Sorry, Calico Fernandez, Attorney General's Office.
I'm sorry,
So,
Ms. Fernandez, go ahead.
No problem. So I think if I heard your question correctly, what was the state of the law pre-Dobbs on minors? So pre-Dobbs, federal precedent was very clear that minors' access to abortion could not be completely contingent on parental consent. You had to at least have a judicial bypass or a method to allow the minor to demonstrate that the abortion was either in their best interest or that they were mature enough to make the decision.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. No other questions?
Just one follow-up.
Go ahead.
For Ms. Fernandez as well. So just to clarify, are you saying that there was some standard in place, right, for minors, and this was not a free-for-all process as far as not having parental consent? The minor had to show some level of knowing, essentially. Is that correct?
Well, basically, under federal precedent, the floor was as I described. You could not completely condition on parental consent, but states could, if they chose to, allow minors to obtain abortion without parental consent.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go to the testifiers who are additionally added here. I have testimony in opposition from Mary Smart.
Chairs Bellotti and Tarnas and committee members, thank you for your time. I'm definitely in opposition to this horrendous bill. You can't have a right to something that's wrong, that's forbidden by the Constitution. There is a right to life. The child is not the woman's body. Women aren't male and female, and they have male babies. So, but 4 points. I need some clarity. The definition given for a viable, non-viable baby isn't clear. Plenty of studies show between 20 and 24 weeks they're viable. So I would like you to be specific on the number of weeks that you're authorizing for the abortion. Number two, you're protecting doctors who broke the law in other states, but one of the things this says is we're not going to hold people who decline to participate in abortions. We're not going to hold them accountable in this bill, but there's no protection for your pro-life doctors, and thank goodness I have one. I have put in my testimony a statement that I want to know that hospitals and medical offices, pharmacy staff, and facilities aren't going to be required or refer or prescribe contraceptives, and those individuals won't be held liable or accountable, lose their salary, lose their position, lose anything. We need those protections for pro-life people, people who obey the Constitution. Furthermore,
Ms. Smart,
pregnant
your 2 minutes
person.
are up. Can you just wrap it up? But thank you.
Okay, but pregnant person doesn't make sense, and you heard Congresswoman Takuda call it's for women. Let's get back to common sense. And I have some information about age of consent. You know, those of us who know about it, 14 and under, it's always abuse. You have to call the police. Between 14 and 15, it depends on the age of the partner. And if the partner's 5 years or older,
Thank you, Ms.
that's
Smart.
abuse.
We have your testimony. Thank you.
you.
Cheryl Beeler in opposition.
Aloha, Micah Kao, aloha, chair members. Thank you for having me speak. This bill is regarding 14-year-olds and up. But the testimony that I'm hearing isn't about that. It's about abortion, period. Oh, okay, thank you, thank you. So I have a couple of things that I want to say here. So I am wondering how many of you have daughters? How many of you still have daughters in high school? Can you honestly look in my eyes and in your own heart and say that this is an acceptable bill to pass? How would you react finding out that your daughter, a 14 or a 15 or even a 16 or even a 17-year-old daughter, went through this horrible procedure alone without the support of her family? I've been there. I've been there twice. See, but back then, because I'm old, back then we didn't know what abortions really were. We didn't know the horrors that you went through. So let me just give you a little bit of information. The first thing that they do is they walk you into a room, you lay down on this OBGYN bed table that women, we all know when they say scoot down a little more.
Ms. Beeler,
You
your
put
2
your
minutes
legs-
are up. If you could wrap
I
it
will,
up.
I will. They put your legs in a stirrup, and you see all the instruments laying there. Then the procedure starts with no local anesthetic, and you hear them
Ms.
sucking
Beeler,
the life
Ms.
out
Ms.
of you.
Beeler, please, you need to stop at this moment. Your 2
We
minutes have been
are
up.
a society
and you can
that
provide your
does
written
not
testimony.
believe in abortions. Hawaiians do not believe in that. It's not part of our culture.
Thank
when
you.
you're pregnant and you can't have the child by yourself, it gets hanai'd out. Be pono. This is not Republican. This is not Democrat. This is we the people.
Ms. Alice Abelanida, you're up next in opposition. This is going to be followed by Kay Williamson in opposition, and then Pat McManaman in support, and
My
Naya
name is
Newell.
Alice Bellanita. I'm speaking on my behalf in strong opposition of this horrifying bill. Hawaii is already one of the strongest states, pro-abortion states in the United States. So this is just a further expansion of insanity. And I hear a lot of talk on the opposition about health care, bodily autonomy. Well, you know what? This is not, has nothing to do with health care. Abortion is terminating a life, period. It's ending another life. And you know what? If you talk about bodily autonomy, my body, my choice, what about the baby's body? You are now speaking for two people. When you're pregnant, there's another person there. There's two people, not one. So this has, you know, I'm all for bodily autonomy. I'm absolutely for it. But when you have another human being inside of you, what about their rights? What about the little baby's rights? You know, they don't have a say. And a mother's womb should be the safest place on the planet for a child. A mother is, you know, God gave us parents to protect us, the little ones. They're helpless. They're helpless. Even after they're born, they need help. So why are we terminating? And I challenge any one of you here to go watch an abortion procedure. Actually watch what they do. Because you could talk about abortion all day long, but when you actually see the procedure of what is done to that little human being, and you can go and look on there, they have 3D, 4D ultrasounds now, so you can actually see a living being moving around. And you know what? It's barbaric. We are barbaric. We're a civilized society, and I don't know what has happened, but people need to get back to common sense that when you say you're pregnant, you're having a baby. You're not having a giraffe. You're not having a kangaroo. You're having a child, a baby, a human baby. Even animals give birth to babies. So you know what? Even like with these children, what happened to parental rights? You know, like I agree with the other people. This
Ms.
is
Avellaneda,
abuse.
you can,
It's child abuse.
Excuse me, Ms.
You have to
Williamson,
be
wrap up.
18 to join the military.
Your 2 minutes are
You
up.
have to be 18 to go into
Ms.
drink alcohol.
Williamson,
21.
is there a Kay Williamson?
What? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Kay Williamson in opposition?
Hello. Good afternoon, members of the House Judiciary Committee and members of the House Health Committee and others. I'm going to just try to see what hasn't been spoken to. I did look up the definition for the judiciary. I did look up the definition of the word homicide. Homicide is a killing of one human being by another. Intentional homicide is murder. For the Health Committee, I say health care heals and abortion kills. Speaking to the bill, this bill adds a licensed physician assistant may provide medication or aspiration abortion care in the first trimester of pregnancy. The chemicals used to induce abortion are not medication. Medicine is given to heal, not to kill. I would strike the word care in abortion care because it's never caring to kill a human. All the restrictions where these abortions are going to take place have been stricken out of this bill. So I suspect that they'll be done in a school nurse's office. Maybe that's the whole point of that. A pimp's hotel room, a dorm bathroom. This bill also enlarges and protects Hawaii's abortion industry and the transgender providers as well. I don't know if you're aware, but over half the abortions taking place in the USA are chemically induced. First pill starves the baby to death. Second pill
Ms.
expunges the
Williamson,
baby.
Your 2 minutes are up, so if you could put
Yes,
your...
I'd like to tell you about the good news, that there is a reversal treatment now available on Oahu, and call the helpline at 1-855-209-4848. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williamson. Pat McManaman, followed by Naya Newlight and Carrie Wooling. Carrie Wooling is going to be our final testifier.
Thanks. Apologies, chairs. I thought I had submitted the testimony on behalf of the Hawaii Friends of Civil Rights, but apparently it didn't make it in, so my apologies. We stand in strong support of this measure. I would just note that essentially, we've heard a lot about the pros and cons of abortion today. This bill at its heart is really a shield law from my perspective. We have altered very little of the existing law in Hawaii related, if any, related to abortion in this bill. What this bill does is provides insurance for our healthcare providers, whether they're pharmacists, doctors, nurses assistants, nurses aides, hospitals, nonprofit corporations, mothers who are assisting their children obtain abortions. It protects them from the long reach arm of foreign jurisdictions that we are all living under threat now. Texas is threatening and has empowered its citizens to file civil lawsuits against anybody who assists in abortion. And at its essence, this bill protects mothers, parents, corporations, and nonprofits for providing a service that is already legal in Hawaii. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. McManaman. We have next up Naya Newlight.
Aloha, esteemed chairs, vice chairs, and members of the committee. I'm Naya Newlight from Haiku on the beautiful Valley Isle of Maui. I represent the American Association of University Women, and I'm speaking in strong support of this bill. In 1976, I was a young girl living in Paris, and I made a mistake. I had no family, I had no health insurance. So I hitched down to the south of France where I knew an elderly American couple, and I asked them, what should I do? And they said, well, they just built a new hospital in our neighborhood. Why don't we go over there? We went over there, and within one day, I had a safe, legal, and free abortion. I strongly support this bill.
Thank you, Ms. Newlight. Ms. Carrie Wheeling.
Good afternoon, chairs and members of the committee. My name is Carrie Wheeling. I'm with Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies. I am their clinical director, and I am a board-certified family nurse practitioner. I'm here in strong support of this bill because I perform early medicated abortions of pregnancies that are caught before 10 weeks. I want you to recognize that how they describe abortions today, that's not the only way to have it done. There are safe providers who can provide this service. We do not have enough providers to provide this care. That is how I often get people who come to my office. They come to my office because other means are booked too far out to help them. We need more providers. Any medical provider, whether it be a nurse practitioner, a PA, an OBGYN, will practice to the full scope of their license. And we all do our due diligence. We do our research. We make sure that we are certified. We are practicing within the law. And we follow that scope of practice to a T. I offer a compassionate care where people can come to my office. I follow them through the procedure. We have abortion doulas who we offer to women who are going through this process, so they have someone by your side. It's not done in a backseat alley. It's not done in a pimp's office. It's done with my care, and I oversee it from beginning to end. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Newlight. Seeing no further testifiers, members seeing no questions, we are going to take a very, very short 30-second recess just to make sure that we have vote sheets as well as we've called members down. Recess. Reconvening our joint Health and Homelessness and Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs Committee on hearing Senate Bill 1, Senate Draft 2. Members, after much consideration, a lot of conversation around this bill. This bill has been worked on by multiple stakeholders. My recommendation is to pass Senate Bill 1, Senate Draft 2 out unamended. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Mr. Garcia,
Thank you,
Representative
Chair.
Garcia.
Yeah, once again, I think that this bill is not needed because if the bill were not to pass, abortion access would not be impacted at all. So once again, the bill is not needed. And also the issue with parental consent, clear violation of consent from parents. So I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia, for your comments, and your concerns. Any other comments? Seeing none. Health Chair for the vote.
Health Committee, we're voting on SB 1, SD 2. Chair's recommendations to pass unamended. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Amato.
Aye.
Representative Iligan.
Aye.
Representative Kobayashi is excused. Representative Mizuno.
Aye.
Representative Nishimoto.
Aye.
Representative Garcia.
No.
Chair, recommendations adopted.
Go ahead, Greg.
Thank you. For the Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs Committee, my recommendation is to pass SB 1, SD 2 unamended. Questions or concerns? If not, Vice Chair for the vote, please.
Voting on SB 1, SD 2, passing unamended. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Ganadin.
Aye.
Representative Holt.
Aye.
Representative Hashimoto, excused. Representative Ichiyama.
Aye.
Representative Iligan.
Aye.
Representative Kong.
No.
Representative Mizuno.
Aye.
Representative Souza.
No.
Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you.
Members, we are adjourned.
Welcome to the House Committee on Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs. My name is David Tarnas, Chair, and I have Vice Chair Greg Takayama here. It's Wednesday, March 15th. It is 3:24. We're on our 2:15 p.m. agenda here in room 325 here at the State Capitol for the purpose of hearing numerous measures, and we'll go ahead and get started. Senate Bill 1447 relating to tobacco products. In the interest of time, I'll go ahead and I won't read all the summary of it. We'll just go into the testimony. First up, we have Department of Health in support.
Thank you, Chair Tarnas and Vice Chair Takayama. I'm Lola Irvin, representing Dr. Kenny Fink for the Department of Health. The Department of Health greatly appreciates that you are hearing SB 1447, SD1. We do support it. The Department of Health has been asked many times by mayors and those in communities to please collect data at the county level. And that is why we are the only state that collects county-level youth risk behavior survey. And we are glad to serve the counties and the needs of the communities. And having done so, we have been seeing the use of e-cigarettes rising, especially on the neighbor islands compared to the state of Hawaii overall. And so we know that in terms of neighbor island counties, and counties in particular, have been very, the counties know their communities and know what's happening with their children. And so they have been very aggressive in the past and been able to pass ordinances and regulations and to enforce them to protect their children and communities from the sale of tobacco products. And so we do support this as a public health measure. And so thank you so much for hearing this. And we will continue to commit to providing the data so counties will know what is happening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony and support from Jen Kagiwara, Hawaii County Council member. Testimony and support from Laverne Moore, Hawaii State Teachers Association. Please proceed.
Thank you. Aloha Chair and Vice Chair Laverne Moore, speaking on behalf of Osatui Jr., President of the Hawaii State Teachers Association. The HST supports Senate Bill 1447. And we sent on our written testimony, and I want to testify orally on what teachers are saying about this bill. Students are vaping in elementary and middle school, and by high school, they are addicts. Vapers are disruptive, impulsive, they have agitated behavior. They arrive late to classes, or they leave classes early to vape. They have low-performing scores. They have lots of absence. And what happens is, because of the low-performing schools, our schools are taken over by providers. These providers come into the school and they restructure the curriculum. Well, it's not the curriculum or the teachers who are the causes of failing schools. It is failed political policies that is not addressing the social, educational, political problems of vaping in Hawaii by our children. Please give the counties back the authority to meet the needs of their community because they know their communities best. Hawaii needs to stop the tobacco industry from profiting and continuing in causing an educational and health epidemic in our public schools. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony from the Hawaii State Association of Counties in support. Next, we have testimony from Lindsay Freitas, Tobacco Free Kids Action Fund, or a representative.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members. I'm Lindsay Freitas with the Tobacco Free Kids Action Fund in strong support. It has long been a tactic of Big Tobacco to push for policies that limit a local community's ability to adopt the policies that they know they need in their community. They do this because then they can consolidate the decision-making at a level where they think they have more power and influence. And that's what they've done here. It is crucial that we restore local control to local communities so that they can take the necessary steps they need to protect their community and make sure that the youth in those communities are protected from the harmful influence of Big Tobacco. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony and support from the American Heart Association.
Good afternoon, Chair Tarnas and Vice Chair Takayama and committee member Ganadin. We're in strong support of this measure. You've got my written testimony, and you know what this is my 33rd year representing the Heart Association here before the legislature. For a long time, year after year, there were measures to try to preempt our counties here in the legislature that the tobacco industry would push in various different forms. They were sneaky in some ways. And for years we fought it off. And one year we even had to have Governor Wahehe veto a bill that they had snuck through. But they finally were successful in 2018 because they were able to put a preemption measure into a dialysis funding bill, which we never got a chance to testify on. It was put in the very last moments of the legislative session. You can no longer do that under today's rules. But the community never had a say in that matter, and because the bill was in a bill that would provide funding for dialysis centers, we couldn't ask the governor to veto it because we would have killed dialysis patients. So we had to live with it. And since that time, we've not been successful in being able to pass any effective legislation to address this youth vaping epidemic that we have. And there are other examples where the counties have always been the ones who set the pace for important issues in addressing important issues. I worked for 10 years to get smoke-free air law passed in our state, and year after year we were fought off by the tobacco industry pouring money into key pockets to fight off this legislation. But we were successful because at the county level, the communities were able to organize and convince their county legislators to support it. And county by county, we got that done. And then eventually the state saw the sky's not going to fall, and they said, yeah. So it's having the counties have the ability to address key health issues is really important. So we hope you can restore that that power to them.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate your testimony. Next, we have testimony from the American Lung Association, Hawaii.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair Pedro Hara, Executive Director of the American Lung Association. We stand in full support. You have a written testimony. Just wanted to highlight that what's important about this bill, too, is to be able to allow counties to be able to deal with an issue that is so local to them in the way that they most feel that will tackle the issue is at most importance. And we have seen that not only in Hawaii, as the previous testifier talked about it, but across the nation, that a lot of the bills that we have today, a lot of the laws that we have today across the land, were first spearheaded in counties. So that's why it's really important for us to be able to pass this bill and to be able to continue that ingenuity and be able to test policies at the county level before moving them on to the city, into the state level. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony and support from Cynthia Au, American Cancer Society.
Chair Tarnas, Vice Chair Takayama, and committee member. Cynthia Au on behalf of the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in strong support of Senate Bill 1447, Senate Draft 1, relating to tobacco products. This year, approximately 8,460 residents of Hawaii will be diagnosed with cancer. Cancer is the second leading cause of death in Hawaii, with 2,500 deaths each year. 21,000 kids today will eventually die from smoking-related diseases. Lung cancer remains the leading cause of cancer deaths in Hawaii, with an estimated 1,400 adults dying from smoking every year. Tobacco use remains the leading preventable cause of death nationwide. Historically, the counties in the state of Hawaii have been successful in passing tobacco-related policies, such as the smoke-free air laws and Tobacco 21, before Hawaii State Legislature followed, passing statewide policy. Hawaii Island was the fourth jurisdiction in the nation to pass Tobacco 21 before the state legislature enacted this statewide, and became the first state in the nation to pass Tobacco 21 in 2015, leading the way for the entire U.S. Allowing counties the ability to quickly address the unique health needs of their communities results in better overall health, not only locally, but for the needs of the communities and the state as a whole. The measure would not affect tax collection, only the state can collect taxes. Counties in the state have taken notice of the rise of youth e-cigarette or electronic smoking device, and youth use is higher on the neighbor islands. The Hawaii State Association of Counties, as you already know, included a similar bill in their legislative package this year. After many years by the state to work on trying to decrease youth use, the state should consider allowing the county's local control on these issues. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify.
Certainly. Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have testimony from the Hawaii COPD Coalition.
Hi, this is Valerie Chang with the Hawaii COPD Coalition. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify. I echo what has already been said, that allowing counties to pilot legislation is a really good strategy, and also allowing counties the flexibility to meet the unique needs of their individual counties is very respectful and the right way to do things. And we really urge that this bill be passed as is. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony from the Consumer Choice Center. Elizabeth Hicks.
Yes, hi, thank you. My name is Elizabeth Hicks from the Consumer Choice Center. This bill will do more harm than good if passed, encouraging local governments to pass harmful regulations on reduced risk nicotine products like vapes will push many former smokers to switch back to smoking combustible tobacco. Tragically, 1,400 Hawaiians lose their lives to smoking-related illnesses every year, but considering that studies have shown vaping to be 95% less harmful than smoking, ensuring that adult consumers have access to these products will ultimately lead to fewer cigarette smoking-related deaths within Hawaii. More than 100,000 Hawaiians use vaping products, and according to data from the Hawaii Journal of Medicine and Public Health, the largest demographic of Hawaiian vapers are actually 65 years and older in age and started vaping as a means to quit smoking combustible cigarettes. This bill was created to address the so-called youth vaping epidemic, but I'm happy to tell you that according to CDC's National Youth Tobacco Survey, less than 1 in 10 U.S. students reported vaping in 2022, which is the lowest it's ever been. And even the FDA has declared that they are no longer using the term youth vaping epidemic, as it is no longer an accurate depiction of reality. Forbidding local governments from implementing smart harm reduction policies and encouraging them to further regulate this area through flavor bans, increased taxes on products, limits on nicotine levels, and others will lead to former smokers to switch back to smoking combustible cigarettes. As we know, smoking-related illnesses are serious and can lead to cancer. On a personal note, after being around secondhand smoke for most of my life, I received my own cancer diagnosis this last year, undergoing chemo, radiation, immunotherapy, multiple surgeries, and I can assure you I would not wish this on anyone. And assuming you wouldn't either, it's imperative that you embrace vaping as a harm reduction tool for adults and ensure that Hawaii's policies allow these products to stay on the market to help prevent your citizens from ending up in a situation similar to mine. I'll wrap up with this. Ultimately, forbidding localities from enacting their own smart harm reduction policies is simply misguided, as the unintended consequences would only exacerbate the problem that Hawaii is trying to fix, making this particular bill unviable in achieving its desired outcomes.
If you could summarize, that'd be great.
To vote against SB 1447. Thanks so much. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Next, we have testimony in support from the Hawaii Public Health Institute.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Jessica Yamauchi for the Hawaii Public Health Institute in strong support of this measure. Our testimony does echo many of the previous testifiers in support. I'll just, in the interest of time, highlight one thing I wanted to mention is that we did commission an independent poll done by Ward Research that did show that 89% of registered voters support letting counties enact stricter tobacco-related policies to protect youth. And 75% said that there are not enough restrictions on the sale of vaping products or e-cigarettes to protect Hawaii's youth. And finally, 79% believe that fewer people would use tobacco products if it was harder to purchase them. And as mentioned before, just as a reminder, the Big Island was, really led the way with Tobacco 21. They were the 4th jurisdiction in the country to pass it. It then became a state law and now a federal law. So we know that our counties can really lead the way on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony in opposition from Aloha Petroleum, Minute Stop, Par Hawaii, Myung-O. Next, we have testimony in opposition from Americans for Tax Reform, Tim Andrews. Please proceed.
Hi, this is Ben Roger. I'm testifying on behalf of Tim, who was a little sick today. We submitted extensive written testimony, so I'll just summarize what we put in there. I urge you to reject SB 1447. I think it's good governance that matters of this magnitude are decided at the state level due to both the level of increased scrutiny as well as the transparency and accountability that it would provide. I think retaining regulatory consistency and uniformity throughout the state in terms of tobacco policy safeguards residents and businesses from poorly thought out local restrictions and protects the state's revenue streams in uncertain economic conditions. And as such, we urge you to vote no on this. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony in support from Julian Lipsher. Welcome.
Welcome. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Julian Lipsher, testifying as a private citizen. It's an indisputable science fact that smoking cigarettes and tobacco use and nicotine remain the leading cause of death and illness in Hawaii. Despite this, tobacco companies have strategized numerous ways to delay and to deflect implementation of sound public health policies. They question the science, they quarrel with the implementation, they contribute to campaigns. Yet their influence has been blunted at the county level, where elected officials are closer to the voters and the problems are more clearly recognized. So how does the tobacco industry get around this obstacle that thwarts their profits? Preemption. They promote the passage of laws where the state occupies the entire field of regulation and where local voices and county councilors are taken out of the picture. If we turn back the clock to over a decade ago, state legislature had not acted on bills to protect citizens from exposure to secondhand smoke. In a relatively short time, Hawaii counties, all of them, had passed forms of protective measures. This effort demonstrated the need and the popularity for state action, and a comprehensive state law was subsequently enacted that we all enjoy and benefit from today. The issue now is vaping. We know the counties will act. The industry knows the county will act, and as we heard, the preemption issue was in a kidney dialysis bill. Repealing preemption would restore local control, allow local voices to be more readily heard, and county councils would be able to take action to protect the public's health when action at the state level has stalled. I urge you to consider the policy implementations and pass this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We received written testimony, 21 in support and 10 opposed. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on Senate Bill 1447 in person or on Zoom? Seeing none. Questions, members? If not, we'll move on. Thank you very much for your testimony. Next, we'll move on to Senate Bill 687 relating to intoxicating liquor, increases the amount of malt beverage and wine, alcohol that a small craft producer pub licensee may produce during the license year. First up, we have testimony in support from Garrett Marrero, Maui Brewing Company. Please
Aloha,
proceed.
Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Thanks for the opportunity to testify. I put a lot of information into my written testimony, but I would just really, it's a simple point. Why would we restrict anyone making anything here in the state of Hawaii and limit the production that could be made? It seems to me that these limitations only exist because they've always existed. So I think it's time to remove restrictions on how much we can produce and allow us to grow revenue rather than continue to seek growing revenues by increasing taxation. Let us make more and we'll pay more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony in opposition from Kenneth Hu, Hawaii Liquor Wholesaler Association. Testimony in support from Brett Larson, Kauai Island Brewing Company. Testimony in support from Honolulu Beer Works, Kauai Beer Company, Waikiki Brewing Company, Big Island Brew House, Maui Wine, and testimony in opposition from S. Perry. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify in Senate Bill 687? If not, questions, members? Seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you very much to the testifiers. What's that? No government agency. Next, Senate Bill 1411, relating to the Drug and Alcohol Toxicology Testing Lab. We have first up testimony in support from the Department of Transportation.
Hi, this is Robin Shishido with the State Department of Transportation and Highways Deputy Director, and we stand by our testimony in support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony and support from the Hawaii Public Health Institute. Richard Collins. That's all the testimony we received on this measure. Anyone else wishing to testify on Senate Bill 1411? If not, questions, members? Seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you very much to the testifier. Senate Bill 1166 relating to the renewal of driver's licenses. It allows for the renewal of driver's licenses by mail or online. On this measure, we have testimony in support from the Department of Transportation. Please proceed.
As Robin Shishido, Deputy Director for DOT Highways, and we stand in our testimony submitted in support of this bill.
Thank you very much. Next testimony in support from City County Honolulu Department of Customer Services. Next testimony in support from Andrew Crossland and Caroline Azelski. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on Senate Bill 1166? If not, questions, members? We heard a very similar bill, so we'll move on. Senate Bill 753 relating to accessibility requires retail establishments with an employee toilet facility to allow a customer suffering from an eligible medical condition to use that restroom during normal business hours under certain conditions. First up, we have testimony in support from Marcus Kawatachi, Hawaii Civil Rights Commission. And then testimony in support from the Disability and Communication Access Board, Kirby Shaw. Testimony with comments from the Hawaii Association for Justice. I see Evan here. Yes, please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Evan Oe on behalf of the Hawaii Association for Justice. We stand on our written comments and will be available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony in support from the Big Island Ostomy Group. Sandy Wright.
Okay. Yeah, people with certain medical conditions, including Crohn's disease, irritable bowel syndrome, and anything involving an ostomy device, or that have a permanent or temporary condition where they need immediate access to a restroom. This can be difficult if the businesses do not have a public restroom. 21 states in the United States have already passed the Restroom Access Act, known as Alley's Law, to acknowledge this medical need, but not Hawaii. Alley's Law requires retail establishments to allow people with certain medical conditions to access an employee restroom if no public facilities are available and they have an urgent need. This law is based from a 14-year-old Allie Bain, who they had to use the restroom and they denied her access and she had an accident in the store. This has caused many people not to ever leave home due to this non-access. Allie and her mother got a law passed in Illinois in August 2005. Since then, other states have also passed the Restroom Access Act, 21 plus states. The law in each state requires a person to show proof of an eligible medical condition to a business owner or employee. Proof may be in the form of a document that has a medical professional that has signed a statement that the person has a certain condition and may require immediate use of a restroom. Alternatively, it may be an identification card that a national organization has issued. If a business denies that person with a valid documentation, there could be some sort of punishment. For example, in Massachusetts, there's a $100 fine for first-time offenders. Allie's Law falls under the Americans with Disability Act.
Ms. Wright, could I ask you to summarize your testimony?
Okay, I just have one more sentence to say, and that is, this is my 4th year trying to get this important law passed. I cannot believe getting this passed in Hawaii is so hard. This is a state that cares about people that live here and normally does not discriminate. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you very much for your testimony, and thanks for your steadfast support. It's not easy to pass a law. Okay, next, moving on. We have testimony in opposition from Tina Yamaki, Retail Merchants of Hawaii. Welcome. Aloha. Aloha.
Good afternoon. We understand the intent of this bill, but we are opposing it.
You know, this is more of a safety issue for us. We want to point out that Center for Disease Control estimate there's only 1.3% of the entire population who has Crohn's disease. But this is going to cost retailers a lot of money. Number one is there's no way to verify a doctor's note. There's no verifydoctorsnote.com that we can go to. I can download any medical logo and then sign it, you know, please excuse Tina Yamaki, she has Crohn's disease, signed Dr. Tallulah, Venezuela. No one's going to know if this thing is right or not, and we've seen that during the pandemic with people trying to get around mask laws. The other thing is it's going to cost retailers a lot of money. We're going to have to put in locked cages for all of our merchandise because our employee bathrooms are back in our storage rooms. We're also going to have to put in more cameras. We're also going to have to look at how our employee bathrooms are done because a lot of times there's just cubby holes where we can put our purses and things like that. Now we're going to have to buy locked cubby holes for this thing. This is going to cost businesses tens of thousands of dollars to do this, just for 1.3% of the population. We also want to point out that a lot of shopping centers and stuff do have public restrooms, and there are products out there for adult diapers and consistency type of things that people can use. So who's going to pay for this? It's going to be all of us. It's going to be the consumer. The next time you go to the supermarket, your eggs, your milk, your Spam is going to go up in price. Your clothing is going to go up in price because someone has to pay for it. If we can't raise our prices, we're going to look at cutting employees' hours or maybe cutting employees themselves. Or maybe for some smaller stores, they're just going to close down because we also know everything has gone up. Even the unemployment insurance is about $200 more per person. So please consider that when you're making your decision today. Mahalo.
Mahalo. Good to see you, Tina. Thanks for testifying. Next, we have testimony in opposition from the ABC stores, Curtis Higashiyama, and testimony in support from Robin Wurtzel. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on Senate Bill 753? If not, questions, members? Seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you very much to all the testifiers. Next, we have Senate Bill 1490 relating to state employees. Requires the state to defend professionally licensed or certified state employees from civil actions when the employee was acting within the scope of their employment and was not grossly negligent or wanton. Or wanton. That's.
I like wontons.
Yeah. We're all hungry, I can tell. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the testimony. We have testimony with comments from the Attorney General. In person.
Good afternoon, Chair and Committee. Deputy Attorney General Amanda Weston. We just had a couple of requests that additional language be added to the bill. First of all, that the state or the AG's office not be required to represent an employee unless they are cooperative with the defense. And secondly, that if a decision is made to represent or not to represent an employee, that the written materials and the hearing be held in camera. And that is to protect the state employee.
What does in camera mean?
That means just in front of the judge.
Okay.
Privately.
In this hearing, we don't use jargon, and there's a lot of folks that don't understand. They thought, what is they doing in a camera?
I apologize.
Please, go ahead.
So that would be to protect the state employee, which I believe is the purpose behind this bill. Because if that decision is made not to represent them, then the decision would include sensitive information and also attorney work product. So thank you, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your resilience when I interrupted you. Next, we have testimony with comments from the Department of Human Services. Next, testimony and support from the Hawaii Association for Justice.
Hello, Chair. Evan Oy on behalf of the Hawaii Association for Justice again. Just want to stand on our written comments in support of this measure, and will be available for any questions. Thank you.
You very much. And then testimony and support from the Hawaii Government Employee Association. Welcome.
Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Steve Tevis here for HGA. We stand in strong support to address the AG's recommended amendments. Two things. One is, I don't think we have any issue with the second part about it being in camera, using her term, not mine, in camera.
Thank you.
We have no, I don't think we have an objection to that. We do have an objection to the first one. When the Attorney General says that they do not have to represent if they're not cooperative, I think we need a definition of what cooperation means. For example, if a state employee is on vacation, the AG says, I need you in my office in 48 hours, they can't make it back, or now they're uncooperative and get no representation. So before, I would ask that, HGA would ask before that amendment is considered, that the Attorney General come back with some definition of what that entails to say must cooperate. Thank you for considering this.
Certainly, thank you very much. That's all the testimony we've received on 1490. Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? If not, questions, members? I have a question for the Attorney General, if I may. The title of this bill is relating to state employees. There's actually in here some provisions relating to county employees. I think that might run afoul of the requirement that all the subject matter in a bill must relate to the title. So I'm inclined to remove county employees from this measure. Would you concur?
I only hesitate because of the situation with lifeguards, which are typically county employees.
Yes.
And yet we do represent them.
Well, there may be a
I
title
think-
problem here, so I could leave it in there, but just so you know, there may be a title problem here.
As far as the title goes, I do agree with you.
Well, I think, okay, if you agree with me, then I'm going to take out county employees, because we got to pay attention to that sort of thing. And maybe you can look back at previous legislation to see if you need this for the lifeguards.
Okay. There is already.
I think that there already is statutory.
662-14, I believe.
So if you could just look at that, I'm going to recommend we keep the defective date, so it's going to continue. We'll have to look at it again, but at this point, just to be consistent, I wanted, that's my inclination is to take out county employees, but I would like you to go back and look at what's covered. And then the second question is responding to the HGEA. What do you mean by uncooperative? Is it if they're out of town and you tell them to show up and they don't show up, are they uncooperative?
No, we did not intend, that's not what we consider uncooperative. Based on.
If you could speak into the mic, it would help everyone out in the world that wants to listen to you.
Yes, sorry. No, what we mean by that is when we're going through litigation and the state employee is completely non-responsive to repeated requests for information and assistance. They won't appear for the deposition. They don't respond to our phone calls, emails, everything, all our attempts to get their help to assist with their defense.
Could you give me a definition that I could include in here? Is that appropriate? Or is it a known legal term?
I think I would have to put a little bit more thought into that and get back to you to make it succinct.
Okay.
Because what I just said obviously is too long.
Yeah. I think that it merits, we should respond to the concern because we don't want to make this a problem for the employees or for you. But I think so I would look to you for a definition, and I think it would be good for us to include something in here.
I think it would have to be something like they need to act in assistance with the Attorney General. No, I would.
So maybe what I'm going to do is I'm going to recommend that we do include a definition in here, and I will await your language.
Okay.
And then I'll recommend we keep a defective date so that it'll continue, and we'll have to look at it again. But this moves on to another committee, and we can see what that definition is once you give it to me, and then we can include that.
Okay.
If the committee agrees with my recommendations.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Representative Ganadin.
Oh, following up, Chair.
Yes, please.
I think it's necessary to continue to indemnify and protect licensed professionals who enter into public service. Oftentimes public service is not as well paid as the private sector. So we need to maintain that, these people are protected in their duties and the discharge of their duties. So I'm being educated as we go along, of course. How does it usually work with the Attorney General providing
Representation?
legal representation for certain county employees like lifeguards? How does that usually go about happening?
Well, they would make a request to the AG's office for representation. And then a committee within the Attorney General's office decides based on the fact whether the employee was acting within the course and scope of their employment. And if that is the case, then they are assigned to an deputy attorney general.
So if we were to not pass that bill, that practice would stay in place. But if we were to pass this bill with this new definition, relating only to state employees, we might not be able to protect and defend county employees. Is that correct?
Well, I'm sorry, I don't have it right in front of me, but I believe Hawaii Revised Statute 662-14 already provides that we provide representation to state employees. I can't recall specifically right now whether it does include county.
Or is it because it's, oftentimes these incidences happen on state land, and so the state is a secondary defendant, or there's some sort of other things going on. So I'm assuming there's probably a way to work around this. I'm just sharing my concern because I feel like this needs a good HD1 going into finance to further protect these professionals. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, members? If not, thank you very much for your testimony. Next, moving on to Senate Bill 1527 relating to address confidentiality. This is changing the governmental entity responsible for administration of the address confidentiality program from the Office of the Lieutenant Governor to the Department of Law Enforcement. And on this measure, we have testimony in support from the Office of the Lieutenant Governor. Next, we have testimony in support from the Department of Law Enforcement. And testimony in support from the Crime Victim Compensation Commission. Testimony in support from the Hawaii State Coalition Against Domestic Violence. Testimony in support from Carolyn Lee and Deanna Espinas. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on Senate Bill 1527? If not, questions, members? We've heard a similar measure before. Okay, we'll move on. Thanks very much. Senate Bill 1078 relating to electronic citations establishes a statewide electronic citation program under the judiciary and appropriates funds. First up, we have testimony and support from the judiciary.
Good morning, Chair and Vice Chair. I am Mai Nguyen Van, Acting Director for ITSD of the Judiciary. The Judiciary stands by its written testimony. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony and support from the Department of Transportation.
Hi, Chair and Vice Chair. This is Robin, Deputy Director for Highways, and we stand by the written testimony in support of this measure.
Thank you. Testimony and support from the Honolulu Police.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Major Stason Tanaka. We stand in support of the bill and here to answer any questions.
Thank you. And next, testimony in support from the Department of the Prosecuting Attorney, City and County of Honolulu. Mr. Tom.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Deputy Prosecuting Attorney Mark Tom for the department. Department is in support of Senate Bill 1078, just with comments. Currently under the pilot project that covers Honolulu and Maui, that funding is coming through the Department of Transportation. Through that funding, our office, as well as Maui, I believe our office specifically has 25 licenses to access, through our deputies, to access the program through the vendor, which is thin blue line reporting. The comments that we have is just clarifying, at least it appears that there's granted aid under Section 4, 5, 6, and 7 for the various counties. We just want to make sure that the various prosecuting attorneys in each county is able to utilize some of that granted aid to cover those licenses when this program goes into effect, so we can have access to the programs, and that is covered by Section 4, 5, 6, and 7. We'll be here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on Senate Bill 1078? If not, questions, members? Seeing none, let's move on. Thanks very much to the testifiers. Senate Bill 813 relating to court interpreters requires the judiciary to increase the hourly fees, mileage reimbursement rate, and commuter time compensation rate for court interpreters and appropriates funds. Testimony and support from the judiciary. Welcome. The floor is yours. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, and members. Debbie Tulang D. Silva on behalf of the judiciary. We stand on our written testimony in support. The judiciary feels that a rate adjustment to court interpreter fees are warranted. We are working on it as we speak through our Supreme Court Committee Advisory Committee already. We are here to answer questions. We just specifically ask this committee to consider the judiciary's appropriation amount as well as the suggested amendments to this measure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, testimony and support from the Supreme Court Committee on Court Interpreters and Language Access Subcommittee on Interpreter Fees. That's a long title.
I know. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I'm here representing the Supreme Court Committee on Court Interpreters and Language Access Subcommittee on Interpreter Fees. We have been conducting research for the past 8 months on this exact subject. The subcommittee is therefore here to testify in strong support for Senate Bill 813 relating to court interpreters because court interpreters are an essential part to the judiciary in that they are the conduit by which the state provides equal and meaningful access to the courts for persons of limited English proficiency. Court interpreters have not received a pay increase since 2007. That is 16 years ago. These stagnant wages actually translate into a $32.5 dollar for dollar pay decrease since 2007 when inflation is taken into account. Sorry about my voice. Professional court interpreters possess highly specialized skills that can take years to hone. The judiciary's effort to attract and retain the highest quality professional legal interpreters in the state are being undermined by the current interpreter fee schedule. Senate Bill 813's call for a pay adjustment for interpreters and an increase in mileage reimbursement is reasonable in that it considers the national inflation rate since 2007, it considers the added cost of living in Hawaii, and it calls for the mileage allowance to reflect the federal standard rate. Additionally, to avoid another 16-year lag, interpreter compensation should be reviewed at least every 3 years, in our opinion. We wish the legislature would appropriate the monies necessary to cover the pay increase proposed in Senate Bill 813. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony and support from the Office of Language Access.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and member of the committee. Pirak Bamrugan, Executive Director for the Office of Language Access. We stand on our written testimony in support of this measure and defer to the judiciary for any substantive recommendation. Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony and support from numerous organizations, Hawaii County Office of the Prosecuting Attorney, the Legal Clinic, Hawaii Coalition for Immigrant Rights, and testimony and support from numerous individuals. Let's see, in person, Christina Arswaga. Oh, lucky us. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Cristina Arswaga, and I am here to voice my strong support for Senate Bill 813 as a professional interpreter. I know it's bad form to talk about yourself, but I feel there is a fundamental misunderstanding about interpreters, which has contributed to the issue at hand. Court interpreters are not just people who happen to speak a second language. It is a highly specialized profession that requires years of study and training. I am a Tier 6 federally certified Master Spanish interpreter. The passing rate for the federal certification exam is just about 3 to 4% nationwide. And just to give you an idea, and this isn't to pass shade on any attorney here, but the Hawaii bar exam has a historical passing rate between 60 and 87%. I have worked at The Hague, at the UN. I have interpreted for presidential debates on live TV. I've worked for some of the most notorious federal crime cases in the nation. And lest you think I'm bragging, I can assure you that among my federally certified peers, I am quite average. So my point is, court interpreters must be highly experienced and skilled because we deal with life and death situations. Just this morning, I was working on a murder case here in Hawaii. The 16-year wage stagnation, which is really a decrease, has had the effect of discouraging the best and brightest from working for the judiciary. It is in no one's best interest to only have access to less than qualified court interpreters. 16 years is a long time, too long to wait for recognition. But you now have the opportunity to right this wrong and contribute to the judiciary's core mission of equal access to justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for educating us about your profession. Next, we have testimony and support from Suzanne Zeng. Please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman, Vice Chairman, and the members of the committee. I too am a court interpreter, although I am on the other committees as well. But I happen to be a Tier 3 court interpreter, and there's many of my colleagues who don't even have a test that they can take to move up to the tier system. You may know that there are 6 tiers that you can move up and get higher pay. But even so, a lot of them, there just are no tests. And so I personally know excellent community and medical interpreters, conference interpreters who speak languages Samoan, Chuukese, Pohnpeian, Marshallese, Yapese. They will not be able to take a court exam to even prove their abilities. However, they're excellent court interpreters because of the study and all the background education that they have gone through. But they won't take jobs directly with the court simply because they cannot get paid more than doing their other community and medical interpreting jobs. And so that means that it leaves the defendants and witnesses in court with whoever they can get, I suppose, and maybe some are very good, but there's just too many interpreters who are very good who just will not interpret in court. And so I just wanted to say, this very high level, high stake, court cases, this SB 813 is very, very important because it will get more people to get into the program and to be willing to and use their services in the courts where they should. And I think we can get higher quality interpreters once this passes. So I really hope that we don't wait any more than the past 16 years that we've already waited to really increase these wages and get the defendants and victims, witnesses, the justice and equality that they deserve. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony and support from numerous individuals: Lolita Kibal, Jungshin Oberlin, Victor Samo, Hayato Honjo, and Natalia Peck. And we also have testimony from Martin Adler. Mr. Adler, please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, members of the committee, for hearing my testimony. I've been a Tier 2 Spanish interpreter for the 2nd District Court of Hawaii for 10 years. My prior experience includes 20 years as a U.S. diplomat, several years as a TEFL teacher and Spanish teacher. I have a master's degree in international communication from American University in Washington, D.C. When I interpret, I live 12 miles, a 25-minute drive from the 2nd District Court. When I go to the court for an interpreting assignment, I wait anywhere from 10 to 40 minutes before providing my services and then driving home. During the pandemic, when I did my court interpretations via Zoom, the compensation of $35 an hour for creating a 2-hour commitment of my schedule and providing interpretation was reasonable. With the pandemic past, I've become quite reluctant to spend more than 2 hours of my time driving to and from the court, finding parking, going through security, and waiting for my case to be called for $85 in compensation for my services and mileage traveled. I strongly support the raise in professional compensation and mileage provisions of SB 813 in the interest of enabling the Hawaii judiciary system to provide high-quality interpretation to the clients and staff of the state courts. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony and support from numerous individuals: Jun Stein, Mary Paz, Gunda Nolenberger, Dina Yoshimi, Marcela Boido, Alexander Bistrika, Rebecca Buell, Jocelyn Manipal Larson, Maria Lopez Fisher, Rhonda Akano, Christy McPherson, Adriana Cho Tancholun, Sandra Tsukiyama, comments from Roman Drucker, and support from Soyan Hiramath, Shaoli Gu, and Deborah Letelier. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on Senate Bill 813? Please, you first. Please introduce yourself. Please proceed.
Okay. Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Maria Valajay, testifying as an individual in support of SB 813. I have copies of my testimony. It's just very late. I didn't get a chance to submit it, but I wanted to testify today to stress the importance of our court interpreters. I strongly support this measure to increase their salaries as they are vital in administering access to justice for non-English speaking individuals. And as an immigration paralegal, my experiences in court have shown me the dire needs for court interpreters. Too often, immigrants who do not speak English are forced to represent themselves in court without proper understanding of the legal system or the language. And immigration law is a very sophisticated system, and there is a lack of free or reduced immigration legal services here in our state. So watching these individuals struggle to understand the proceedings and express their thoughts and feelings accurately is very heart-wrenching. So court interpreters play a vital role in bridging this gap, and we must recognize their importance and value their work accordingly. And that's starting with providing them with an adequate living wage. And it's also important to note that court interpreters require specialized training and certification, and their services should not be undervalued. Thank you for your support and consideration.
Thank you very much. And if you could provide your written testimony to our clerk over here, that'd be great. His name is Keone. Nice guy. Next, please.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. I'm Angelina Mercado, the Executive Director of the Hawaii State Coalition Against Domestic Violence. We, as you probably already know, are a statewide coalition of 28 member programs, and I cannot emphasize how important this measure is, and we are in strong support of this measure. We work directly with the judiciary, actually in collaboration with their basic orientation and intermediate or training for their basic for their interpreters. And I know if you're looking for my testimony, I'm doing this on the fly. My apologies. But this is something that actually has come up in the domestic violence field and sexual assault field, how important it is to have well-trained court interpreters. A really important part of what their training is around ethics. And ethics, when you're dealing with victims of violence, is extremely important. Our state judiciary and some of the trainers whom you have already heard testify take that very seriously, and we cannot emphasize how important this is. Also, as a child of immigrant parents, I know what it's like to have to translate and interpret really complicated information and situations in life. It wouldn't necessarily happen in the court setting, but it happens before so many of our victims come to court, and we would never want to extend that trauma on those family members who may not be prepared for it. So please pass this measure with the amendments recommended by the judiciary. Aloha.
Aloha, thank you. If you could, Angelina, provide your name, contact information with Keone, that'd be great. And if you want to submit written testimony late, you could do that too. Okay, next. Yes, please. The floor is yours. Please proceed. Introduce yourself, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Ayanohara Nishimura. I'm a Japanese court interpreter in Tier 2, which is the highest tier for my language because we don't have the test available. And I belong to the same committee with my colleagues here today. Thank you very much for having us. As a professional interpreter for 25 years of experience, I support SB 813. At this time, I would like to speak from what I have been observing in this industry. As we can see, court or legal interpreting requires the highest level of language proficiency and skills to be performed, as well as the strict professional conduct and ethics, as she just mentioned. We interpret not only for the defendants, but for the attorneys, judges, and then expert witnesses on different fields. Yet our current fee is lower than the entry-level community interpreters who are taking the patients and to the clinic for checkup. Let me just talk about what is happening here from this situation. First of all, many qualified conference and business interpreters in the state are not interested in registering in the court system to work as a court interpreter because their pay is so low. Number two, however, there are some good interpreters who have passed the test and registered. But when they get a call from the judiciary for the criminal, traffic, and divorce cases, they turn it down. They don't want to work for the state because the pay is too low. The state has some good interpreters on the roster, on the paper, but these interpreters only work on private civil litigation, not state cases. Number three, the interpreters who are currently in the system have started to lose interest in taking the state assignments because other jobs pay better. When they have a better opportunity, they return the assignment then to the judiciary and take it. Our job is not full-time. $50 a day is not enough. So for these reasons, in order for us to avoid the deterioration of quality of services, I would like to express my strong support for this bill, SB 813. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. If you would be so kind as to provide your name to our committee clerk over there with Keone, that'd
Sure,
be great.
thank you.
Mahalo. Anyone else wishing to testify in this measure, please come on up, introduce yourself, and proceed.
Thank you. Pat McManaman, Hawaii Friends of Civil Rights. We did submit testimony on this one. I'm sorry if I missed and didn't hear. At least my legislative box is showing that you got testimony from the Hawaii Friends of Civil Rights, for what it's worth. I speak from multiple perspectives. I'm a retired attorney, and I've done many things in my career, including working with the judiciary in the early days and developing Hawaii's language access laws. And I'm happy to tell you that this program for court interpreters is in terrific hands with our Hawaii State Judiciary. I think about 6 years ago, they were rated #1 in the nation in terms of providing language accessible services. And they still remain to be one of the most highly rated states. So, this is not money misspent by any means. This is money that's in very capable hands in a very well-developed program. The other thing is I've had the privilege of presiding as a part-time judge over cases where Representative Takayama's daughter appeared in front of me, where Representative Ganadin appeared in front of me. And, just from my perspective in sitting in district court, if you don't have a well-qualified interpreter, there could be a very serious miscarriage of justice. I've gone through, because of my age, experience with interpreters who were not qualified. And I remember very early in my career just approaching the judge and saying, I need a recess. I need to talk to my client. Because all of a sudden, my client was using words that were, through an interpreter, that were not familiar with me, a storyline that was not familiar. I took him down off the stand and discussed it with him out in the hallway. I said, hey, what's going on? He said, well, the interpreter is telling me what to say.
Oh, dear.
Oh, dear,
Could you
is
wrap this up?
exactly right. And so that's why we need well-qualified and trained interpreters to make sure that the information that defendants and plaintiffs and others are presenting before the court, witnesses, is translated and interpreted accurately.
Thank you.
It makes a big difference.
Thank you very much. If you could tell Keone about your testimony, because I didn't see it. That'd be great. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure, Senate Bill 813? If not, questions, members? Nope. Yes. Representative Ganadin.
Judiciary? Is the judiciary still here? I'm trying to pull up your testimony one more time. If this doesn't pass, can the budget be amended to be increased to allow for a pay increase for interpreters?
If it doesn't pass?
Yeah, is the judiciary capable of moving its budget around and amending its pay rate, or does this need to go, do we need legislation?
I believe, looking at the numbers, we need legislation. The current budget package bill or the budget doesn't include extra to cover the increase that we're going to need to pay out for the increased rates.
I understand that. Just today, we heard from the finance chair at the House, HB 300, which outlines in fairly significant detail the prospective state budget, at least coming out of the House. So, again, you're telling us that if we don't pass this, the current unfortunate events in which,
That's
interpreters are like not well paid.
I mean, maybe if I can reserve and check back with our fiscal and get back to you on the answer to that, but.
Please do.
Yeah.
Please do. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That if this doesn't pass, are we able to move things around and be able to cover it if this doesn't pass?
I'm just not seeing it in here where it's, us as legislators and members of the bench, we're tied to our pay in an entirely different way, right? So, I'm just not sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll get back to you.
So I guess there's two parts of the question. One is, do you need statutory authority to increase the wages, which I suspect you don't. The question is, do you need this bill for the additional appropriations? And my guess is you're saying probably yes.
Yes, probably
Okay.
yes, but
Yeah.
I will get back to you.
Okay, if you would, please. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think we're your last stop, so.
Anyone else, questions? If not, thanks very much. Let's move on to Senate Bill 35, relating to civil legal services, appropriates funds for the judiciary to purchase civil legal services for low and moderate income persons. First up, we have testimony and support from the judiciary. Testimony and support from Department of Human Services. Testimony and support from Hawaii Access to Justice Commission. Testimony and support from the Legal Clinic. Testimony and support from the Domestic Violence Action Center. Testimony and support from Hawaii Friends of Civil Rights. Hi.
Pat McManaman, representing the Hawaii Friends of Civil Rights. I'm happy to say I'm not a lobbyist. I'm not on any board of any of the recipients of these funds, but I have spent my career practicing public service law, and funding is absolutely essential. I think even more so these days, I think our democracy is very fragile. And once we start having these fractured systems where only the rich have access to legal services and the poor are left out in the dark, we're going to create further divisions in our society. And this is one way of funding. And keep in mind, none of these attorneys, I can attest to this, are getting rich off of the funding being offered by the legislature. They are, Sonny is laughing, they are public servants, and they are performing a community service because of their commitment to justice. And so I urge you to fund. I know last year, thank you very much, the legislature funded $1.25 million. If you can up that, terrific. It is not a dime that's going to waste to preserve democracy and access to justice. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We have testimony and support from Legal Aid Society of Hawaii, Volunteer Legal Services Hawaii, Hawaii Coalition for Immigrant Rights, and testimony from Amy Chung. And we have testimony from Patricia McManaman, but you just gave that. So.
Yeah, under Hawaii Friends for Civil
Okay.
Rights. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify in Senate Bill 35?
Hello? Can you hear
Is
me?
this Bettina?
Yes, Bettina with the Legal Clinic.
Oh, thank you very much for being here. Your timing is perfect. You're up next. Please proceed.
Yes, thank you. I also stand on our testimony, our written testimony. We're in support. I'll just note that we were a recipient last year of funds that came out of this bill, and it has allowed us to expand our services already. We're a pretty new nonprofit, 3.5 years old, but we have already done more outreach to Hawaii Island. Our legal team just recently came back from there with many new clients to serve. So thank you for considering this bill, and we register our support.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in this measure? If not, questions, members? Representative Ganadin.
To Ms. Mock.
Hello.
Hey,
Yes.
good afternoon. Unfortunately, we don't have the Director of Courts, Rod Miley, here to give testimony, so I'm just going to ask you a couple of quick questions of about how this ordinarily works. How are these sorts of funds ordinarily directed to qualified legal service providers?
We first learned about this opportunity for the first time last year. We went through an application process by which we were invited to bid. It's a vendor contract. And then there was an administrative group at the judiciary that selected and notified us of the awards. Is that what you mean, Senator Ganadin?
Yeah, and your specific duties, what do you folks do at the legal clinic?
We do a combination of things, but primarily we provide free immigration legal services to residents of Hawaii who qualify under the 200% federal poverty threshold. And so this is all types of folks either needing to renew their green cards, apply for citizenship, or who are at risk of removal for deportation. And this funding allows us to also do community outreach to put on Know Your Rights workshops and things to alert the low-income community that there may be avenues and pathways for them to stay united as families and regain employment authorization and those types of things.
What's the average caseload of your attorneys?
Well, in immigration law, that's hard to say because the cases stretch over more than 1 year. We serve at least 70 individual clients, but currently in terms of case matters, we have well over 150 open, and we just have 2 lawyers, down to 1 until we find a second new immigration lawyer, which is hard.
And you
It's
folks
hard.
folks also like the Domestic Violence Action Center, Legal Aid, Volunteer Legal Services of Hawaii. You folks also do quick answers for people who need questions about their legal status, the process, those kinds of things that I'm sure people really appreciate.
Yeah, we provide that kind of counsel and brief service, but we often refer people to Catholic Charities and Pacific Gateway Center. They don't have immigration lawyers on staff, but they have Department of Justice accredited representatives, as do we, and they can take a lot of those more routine matters. That frees up legal aids lawyers. There are 3 for immigration, R2, DVAX 1, and a few others. The Richardson Law School has a few lawyers. It's very few lawyers that can do the more complex casework. So we're all working really closely in collaboration now to sort of leverage our resources.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, members? If not, thanks very much to our testifier. And let's move on to the last measure on our agenda, Senate Bill 483, relating to the Uniform Probate Code. This measure updates Articles 1 through 4 of the Uniform Probate Code to adjust for inflation, provide additional clarity, resolve issues that have arisen in probate practice, and address societal changes in familial relations. First up, Jeffrey Niebling, Judiciary.
Good afternoon. Yes, my name is Jeffrey Niebling. I'm testifying on behalf of the Judiciary's Committee on Uniform Probate Code and Probate Code Practices. We have submitted written testimony. I would just like to point out that we, in response to testimony on the companion bill, House Bill 383, we have suggested some clarifying language be added. But I'm here to answer any questions you may have in regards to the legislation.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony support from Elizabeth Kent. Commission.
Aloha. I think I'm the final testifier today that stands between you and the end of this hearing, so I'll be very short. The CPUL supports this bill. Please pass it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, members, we have written testimony with comments from Carolyn Nickel. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on Senate Bill 483? If not, questions, members? Seeing none, that's all the measures we have before us today. We're going to take a brief recess to assemble members for decision making. reconvening the House Committee on Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs for decision-making. This is our 2:15 p.m. agenda. Thank you all to all members for assembling. Let's go ahead to the top of the agenda. First up, we have Senate Bill 1447. My recommendation is to move this out as is. Questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on Senate Bill 1447 SD1 passing as is. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Ganadin.
Aye.
Representative Holt.
Aye.
Representative Hashimoto excused. Representative Ichiyama.
Aye.
Representative Iligan.
Aye.
Representative Kong excused. Representative Mizuno.
Aye.
Representative Souza.
Aye.
Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. Next measure, Senate Bill 687. I'd like, on this measure, there may be some concerns, but I think this is still worth moving forward for the additional committees to hear. So my recommendation is to move it out as is. Questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on Senate Bill 687 SD1 passing as is, noting the excused absence of Representatives Hashimoto and Kong. Anyone voting WR or no? Seeing none, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. On Senate Bill 1411, I'd like to just make some technical amendments, so there would be House Draft 1 with those technical amendments. Questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on Senate Bill 1411 SD2 with amendments, noting the excused absence of Representatives Hashimoto and Kong for the remainder of the agenda. Any WRs or noes? Seeing none, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. Next, we're moving on to Senate Bill 1166. Is that right? For the next one? Senate Bill.
Yes.
Senate Bill 1166 relating to the renewal of driver's licenses. I would like to include the recommended amendment from the City and County of Honolulu and pass it out as HD1. Questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on Senate Bill 1166 SD1 with amendments, noting the excused absences of Reps Hashimoto and Kong. Any WRs or noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next on Senate Bill 753, I'd like to make some, I think they're rather just technical amendments. We're adding the additional states that have passed Alley's law, including California, Louisiana, and New Hampshire, to the preamble. And with that, I recognize that there are concerns for the retail industry. This moves on to Consumer Protection and Commerce. That's really their kuleana to determine what that is acceptable balance between the requested additional services that are being required of a commercial enterprise. So I would like to ask you to bring up these issues with the Consumer Protection and Commerce Committee. But from the perspective of the Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs Committee, I think this was there was a compelling case made that this would be appropriate. So with the technical amendment that I just suggested, I'd like to move it on with an HD1. Questions or concerns, members? No? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on Senate Bill 753 SD2 with amendments. Anyone voting WR or no? Seeing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. On Senate Bill 1490, because of the title, it says state employees, I would like to remove the words county employees when it appears twice in the bill. I would note for all members that the definition of employees of the state in HRS 662-1, let me read it. Employees of the state also includes persons employed by a county of this state as lifeguards and designated to provide lifeguard services at a designated state beach park under an agreement between the state and that county. So already in the statute, it defines employees of the state to include lifeguards that work on state parks. So I don't think we need to worry about lifeguards not being covered in this if I remove county employees. So I want to make that clear to everybody. I know there's discussion about whether we should define uncooperative, and with the research that's being done right now, there is no specific legal definition for that. And I don't want to create something new in this measure. So I would not like to hold up the bill requesting AG to define it, but I think that I'm going to keep the defective date in there, and I would encourage the conversation to occur between you and the Attorney General on this matter. So with that one amendment where we would take out county employees in here, and that would be our only, it already has a defective effective date, yeah. So it's just taking out county employees and moving it out as an HD1. Questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on Senate Bill 1490 SD1 with amendments. Anyone voting WR or no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. On Senate Bill 1527, on this one, I would just like to move it out as is. I think that this actually may be better than our House bill, and so my recommendation is move it out as is. We'll keep the defective date and move it out that way. Yep. Any questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on Senate Bill 1527 SD2 passing as is. Any WRs or noes? Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Senate Bill 1078. On this one, I'd like to make some amendments as recommended by our attorney in the House Majority Staff Office, adding in one section of the bill under definition that it would also include misdemeanor or other citations in law enforcement data. That's my plan. It already has blank appropriation and a defective effective date. I'm going to put into the Standing Committee report the funding and positions for this that are requested by Judiciary, and also, and so that's what I'm going to do. Any questions or concerns, members? Yes, Representative Ganadin.
I was surprised to see lack of testimony from the Office of the Public Defender here at the First Circuit. You know, there might be some issues regarding notice to defendants. Although this eases the communication between county police officers and the judiciary, it's like, I think there's some concern about providing continued notice for court hearings.
I appreciate that. I think it might be worth it for us to contact them, and if they wish to chime in, the chances are to do it in the next hearing. And if there needs to be changes, it'd be good for them to notify us, since we'd have to give prior concurrence. So noted. Okay. Any other questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on Senate Bill 1078 SD1 with amendments. Any WRs or noes?
Reservations.
Reservations for Representative Ganadin. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next on Senate Bill 813. This was a big education for me. I didn't realize that it had been so long since we've increased compensation for these very important professionals as court interpreters. I think I'd like to move this out, make the two amendments that the judiciary suggests to move it out as an HD1. We would include the request for appropriations of $300,000 for fiscal year 24 in the Standing Committee report. Questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on Senate Bill 813 SD1 with amendments. Any WRs or noes? Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next bill, Senate Bill 35. I'd like to move this out as is and put in the Standing Committee report the request for $1.2 million, which is what was in the original bill. Questions or concerns, members? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on Senate Bill 35 SD2 passing as is. Any WRs or noes? Seeing none, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Final bill, Senate Bill 483 SD1. I'd like to move this out with a House draft. One, make some technical amendments. They're all technical amendments. HMSO, House Majority Staff Office has suggested numerous ones, but they're all technical. And then also I'd like to adopt the amendments recommended by the judiciary. And I'd like to acknowledge Carolyn Nickel for her very careful analysis of this and the judiciary's review of her recommendations and their recommendation to adopt several of her recommendations. So It's an HD1, technical amendments, and the judiciary's amendments. Questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on Senate Bill 483 SD1 with amendments. Any WRs or noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all members. There's no further business before us today. This meeting is adjourned.